Good afternoon, everybody. Daniel Sherman here. I would take the video normally where I do in my little uh, chair, but unfortunately Eloise is watching TV and she has requested that I do the video here so she can watch her videos. So I have obliged that. She said, "Thank you, Daddy," and so that makes it all worth it. So what I want to talk about today is perhaps the weirdest case, and for me, not just weird, but maybe the most amazing case that I've ever had. And I have told this story before on the radio, but I'm gonna tell it here. So if you guys don't know about it, so this is a case in Webster County. This was actually the first final sentencing that I had ever done. Previously, the only things that I had done was diversion, so there are no final sentencing in diversions. At least there's not supposed to be, but sometimes judges make you do it anyway. But this was a case where I was called, and I had never been to Webster County. I was called by a church member of this my client. Said, "Hey, here's the story. He's set for sentencing. He went to trial. He was convicted. He didn't have a lawyer. Can you represent him?" So I did it. Not what I thought was a decent rate, but in retrospect, he got a really good deal. So they paid me. I went up. He was set for sentencing. I tried to negotiate with the Commonwealth. It was a child support case. So I tried to negotiate with the Commonwealth, say, "Hey, look, I understand this guy took it to trial." He's like, "Daniel, I offered a diversion. I did everything I could," but he just would not take it. He said, I'm just fine having him sentenced, and, whatever happens. So I had, I went to sentencing, and I did ask the court. I filed a motion to vacate the trial verdict based on the fact that he tried the case without counsel. That was denied. I requested an appeal bond. The court did set an appeal bond later on, and then we appealed it. And so when I appealed it, I got to learn a little bit more about the facts of the case. And this is where it gets really good. So this client was a pretty good member of the community in Webster County. He had a job as a coal miner. He was making pretty decent money. A lot of coal miners do. He had 4 children. He's married to his wife for, quite some time, 20 years. Their kids weren't quite grown yet, but they had some that were in the upper teens. So he starts this church, and it's somewhat successful. It was for the African American community, and it starts to grow a little bit. And he's the preacher, and he can talk a little bit, so I'm sure he did a good job. I never got to see him preach, but in any event, so apparently one day he's preaching, and this happens apparently more than I thought it happens, because it's happened around here before. You guys may have heard about it. He confesses to having an affair with one of the ladies that works at the church. His wife's is sitting in the front pew. He says this, and is asking for forgiveness, and she just gets up and walks out. So he just continues with his request for forgiveness, goes on to a sermon. Well, about a half an hour later, as he's still giving his sermon, she shows up with a .22 rifle and puts 4 bullets in his chest. So ambulance is called. He dies a couple of times on the way to the hospital. They're kind of able to get the blood loss stopped, get his heart going again, and he survives. It's not a full recovery, but he does make somewhat of a recovery. He can't be a coal miner anymore. He's kind of limited physically. There are some things he can do, but he walks a little bit with a limp, and he's got bullet holes in him. And so they charge her with attempted murder. And he begs the prosecutor. He says, please do not put her in jail. I want to make my marriage work. I screwed up. And the prosecutor, begrudgingly, as opposed to charging her with assault first or attempted murder, which is going to do some prison time, he agreed to amend it to assault second degree, Class C felony. At the time, it was not a mandatory 85%. If it were to be today, it would be, because it was serious physical injury. Amends it. She gets a 10-year sentence. It's probated for 5. So they get back together. Everything goes okay. Obviously, he can't work like he normally would. She ends up getting a job at a law office. And of course, if you get a job at a law office, she's getting probably some advice on what to do. And so she starts realizing what she needs to do if she's going to get a divorce. And he doesn't know any of this. They end up having another kid. So basically, as soon as she gets off probation, or very shortly before, she files for a divorce. Well, the lawyer she hires was corrupt, as corrupt as can be. He's been disbarred, would steal stuff, and actually during the divorce stole quite a bit of my clients and even his clients' stuff. Just took it, stole it, it's mine, I'm gonna do what I want with it. Again, since been disbarred. So she shoots him. He begs to not have her prosecuted. She doesn't go to jail, and then now she divorces him. Well, he is not, and I think part of it maybe because he got shot, and part of it's just kind of his personality. He kind of rubs the family court judge the wrong way, and so she ends up getting custody of all 5 children. Now, this guy's making like $10 an hour. Well, the judge looks at him and says, I think you can make more because you were a coal miner. And he has a child support obligation of like $700 and something. Now, if you're making $10 an hour, after taxes for a month, you're probably clearing, if you cleared $1,200, you'd be lucky. So essentially that gives him just, really it's like $300 or $400 to live off if he's gonna pay his child support. Well, he pays about half of it. I mean, he really does make, I think, as good an effort as he can, but it doesn't take very long for there to be arrears. And if you may or may not know this, the way child support works is if you complain and you complain, you're gonna get more results. And that's almost anything in life. The people that complain get the results. It's just the way it is. So they end up prosecuting him for flagrant non-support. So they charge him with flagrant non-support. They offer him a diversion. He doesn't want to take it. He's mad because the family court judge made him pay this. He didn't think it was right. All of a sudden now, even though he begged the prosecutor not to prosecute his wife is an unfit mother because she shot him 4 times. Of course, he wants to bring all this stuff up when probably should have just, maybe went for the throat in the beginning. So he gets prosecuted. So he gets appointed a public defender. Public defender has kind of a hard time communicating with him. The diversion is offered. Public defender says, look, take this diversion, either take it or I'm getting out of the case. Well, he doesn't take it. So the public defender gets out of the case. And then they set the case for trial. And so he has no attorney. The judge made a letter to attorney withdrawal and never appointed a new one. And so he's up there, doesn't know what he's doing. They try the case, and of course, not surprisingly, he is convicted. He's convicted flagrant non-support. He's given a sentence of 3.5 years. That's where I come in and do the appeal, okay? So I do the appeal. It's actually, if you look on my firm's website, it's called Baker versus Commonwealth. It is a published opinion. It is the first appeal I ever did in my entire life, and it was a published Court of Appeals opinion, so I'm very proud of that. And so it was reversed and remanded. The conviction was set aside, and the Court of Appeals said, look, there's 2 things you got to do. Number 1, you have to determine whether or not he can afford an attorney. And if he can't, you have to appoint him one. And then number 2, if you don't appoint him one, he wants to represent himself, you have to conduct what's called a FRERETA hearing. And at that FRERETA hearing, you have to make sure he knows what he's doing as far as hey, if I represent myself, this is going to happen. Now, he didn't want to represent himself. The judge basically just got so tired of him, she took away his lawyer and just didn't put him in jail, actually, because he missed a court date because he wasn't communicating with his lawyer. So that, it was vacated. You would hope that would be the end of the story. It is not. So they try him again, and I didn't represent him on that. He's convicted. He goes to jail. And while he's in jail, they charge him again with flagrant non-support. Now, at that time, you can't anymore, but at that time, you could be convicted of flagrant non-support if you were in jail because you were considered voluntarily unemployed, that you did this and it's on you. So basically, they punish you for having punished you. Now, so he gets convicted another time. So he's got 2 now flagrant non-support convictions. Actually do an appeal for him on both those cases. I went to the Court of Appeals and argued the case in front of the Court of Appeals. And the Court of Appeals basically said, hey, we feel bad for your guy, but this is what the law is. It hasn't changed. So I'm like, you're punishing him for having punished him. I'm like, this is stupid. Like, obviously he can't pay it. A directed verdict should have been granted because he's in jail. I mean, that's the elements, and you're not even following the elements. You're just saying, well, he didn't pay. That's all we care about. And that's not what the law is. And so I made that argument. They rejected it, and so he does his time. It gets better. So he gets out. He goes in front of. Finally, most of the children are emancipated. And here's the thing: when they emancipate, they all come live with him. So that kind of tells you a little bit about their home life. That they wanted to come live with him. They didn't want to live with mom. So he goes in front of the family court judge. The prosecutor told me, and he was true to his word, he said, I am not prosecuting this guy anymore. I've had 3 convictions of him, 2 of them have been upheld. I'm not. If the family court wants to deal with him, they deal with him. Well, of course, the family court wants to deal with him. So they have a motion for contempt, and at this time, it's an arrears-only case. I think maybe the youngest child starts living with him, or maybe the youngest child finally emancipated, and it is... it basically arrears only. Well, he doesn't have to pay terribly too much, but it's like $300 or $400, so it's like nothing, not nothing, especially since he's only making $10 an hour. Well, he goes in front of the judge, and he basically calls the judge corrupt. And so the judge sentences him to 6 months in jail for contempt, and he does every damn day of it. This is again all over child support. All he had to do was just say prosecutor, and that would have been him. And guys, I wish the story ended there, but it gets way, way worse. Okay, so after the divorce, kind of to avoid his creditors, what he did is he put his house and all this other property in his son's name, his eldest son's name. Well, so his wife and the divorce got half, and he got the other. I think he had to buy her out of that marital residence, so he had to pay her money to get that. So he puts all these vehicles, like 6 or 7 vehicles. There was a really nice Ford Mustang chassis that was worth like $50,000. Like, there was all this stuff because he was a coal miner. He had made some money over his life. Well, so he puts it all in his eldest son's name, and his oldest son decides to ride a motorcycle, and guess what happens? He wrecks and dies. Now, here's the rub of all of this. If a child dies and doesn't have any children, the people that inherit are his parents. So that means not only did his wife get half, if not more, of his stuff during the divorce, she's going to get half more because all the property was in the son's name. And with the probate, she gets half. So basically, she got half of his property twice. And I wish I could say there was a happy ending. I did the estate, or some of the estate, and then it just got kind of too ridiculous, and I ended up getting out of the case. I don't know exactly what happened with it. Eventually, all the houses got foreclosed on. He lost everything. He ended up losing everything. And there's a few things he could have done. Here's the lessons to be learned. No hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. That's first. Secondly, all is fair in love and war. If somebody shoots you, I don't care how much you love them, you make sure they go to jail, especially if they are the mother or father of your children, because they may end up getting custody and you may end up going to jail. Also, if you transfer property to your child, or anybody else for that matter, with the intent of keeping it, you better do a will that gives you the property back if they die, so you don't have to deal with what happens when there's not a will. So this, for me, is a Webster County case, is perhaps I just felt so bad for the guy. Now, he brought a lot of it upon himself because he was very difficult to deal with, especially in front of the judge. He was disrespectful. I don't think he meant to be disrespectful, but when you call a judge by her first name, she's going to get a little pissed off, and I think rightfully so. And the judge was just so frustrated with him. That's why she just said, "We're just going to try this case." But she had to know deep down that wasn't gonna stick. But interesting case. I got to argue in front of the Court of Appeals. I got a published opinion out of it. It was, I learned a lot from it, and you just felt like this guy could never ever catch a break. When you think he's going to, he just doesn't. So I think at the end of the day, he did about 4.5 years in jail and on contempt. Lost all of his property, and I think may have lost his church even. And so that's kind of, sometimes that happens in divorce. So I hope you did not enjoy this story, because if you enjoyed this story, then you are a sadistic person and you need help. But it is one of the most interesting stories that I have about a client. I haven't been in communication with him in a while. He did call me a couple years ago. I don't know what he wanted. I returned his phone call, but it is what it is. But let this be a lesson to you guys. This is lawyer story number 5. It is the story that I tell as a cautionary tale. So hopefully you can avoid these pitfalls and these traps. And just remember, stay safe out there, guys. All right, hope you all have a good afternoon. If you have any questions, you can call me, comment down below. Y'all take care.